Good evening, ladies and gents, wherever you may be around the world, and welcome to Splendid Isolation History number 42, which is going to be our last live stream of 2025. And as you can see, it's on a traditional British Christmas. To give people time to join our audience and what have you, I'm going to start us off with a tune.
Take up the white man's burden, send forth the best ye breed. Go bind your sons to exile, to serve your captives' need, to wait in heavy harness on flooded folk and wild. Your new God's sullen peoples have devil and have child. Take up the white man's burden, in patience to abide, to veil the threat of terror and check the show of pride. By open speech and simple, 100 times made plain, to seek another's profit and work another's gain. Take up the white man's burden, the savage wars of peace, fill full the mouth of famine, and bid the sickness cease. And when your goal is nearest, the end for others sought, what's love that heed and folly, bring all your hopes to naught. Take up the white man's burden, no tawdry rule of kings, but toil of serf and sweeper, the tale of common things. The ports ye shall not enter, the roads ye shall not tread. Go make them with your living and mark them with your dead. Take up the white man's burden and reap his old reward. The blame of those ye better, the hate of those ye guard. The cry of those ye humor are slowly towards the light. Why brought ye us from bondage, a loved Egyptian night? Take up the white man's burden, ye dare not stoop to less, nor call too loud on freedom to cloak your weariness. By all ye cry or whisper, by all ye leave or do, the silent, sullen people shall wail gods and you. Take up the white man's burden, have done with childish days, the lightly proffered laurel, the easy ungrudged praise. Come thou to search your manhood through all of thankless years. No age with give what wisdom, the judgment of your peers. Take off the white man's burden through all of thankless years.
And that was, of course, the excellent Chris Gard. If you like good music and you want to listen to stuff from a good musician who's on our side of politics, go and check out Chris Gard's YouTube channel. And he has a lot of contemporary stuff as well as some traditional stuff like that. All right, well, this is going to be our last stream of 2025. It was Arron Hook's idea to do a traditional British Christmas, which I immediately agreed with because British Christmases, as will probably become clear during the stream, are not totally traditional these days. Certainly not in the sense that Arron's going to be talking about today, and also William Grenville. First of all, I've got to apologise. This stream should have been yesterday. I got taken out by some friends yesterday evening, and we ended up going to a party they hadn't told me about, a Christmas party, of course. And I didn't get home until 3:30 in the morning, and I was in no fit state to do a stream, and Arron kindly agreed to postpone it until today. So that was entirely my fault, and apologies to the audience. Also, before we start, I'd like to suggest people go and check out William Grenville's channel, which you can easily find by putting in AI Shire Tory or AI Shire Homelander in YouTube search. He did an excellent stream with Arron as well as myself, and the excellent Alexander Adams, who's actually an artist and an art critic, on British art a couple of days ago, which I was very happy to join and give a few minor contributions to. But Alexander Adams was excellent on that stream, and yeah, if you haven't watched it, do go and check it out on AI's channel. Good evening, Arron. Good evening, William Grenville. How are you going?
Evening, Duke. I'm doing very well, thank you.
Arron,
good evening.
Yeah, good day, William. Arron, how would you like to start us off, mate?
Well, I think if we just talk about some of the earlier traditions, I'm going to say my knowledge of British Christmas traditions in this country is more focused on the Victorian, but I do know a bit about the medieval side of things. And one of the couple of the big sort of continuity elements of Christmas from medieval period today is one of them is carols, so everybody has Christmas carols, but that was something that we now associate with Christmas quite a lot, but it's something that was actually in the medieval period an all-round year. I think it would be for different celebrations and the like, and they are
Arron, on this channel, we've talked about the Agincourt Carol, because that's a famous medieval song, and yeah, it's called a carol. You're right. Thank you.
Yeah, and they did as Duke has mentioned, carols for something like big sort of national events like the defeat of the French at Agincourt, but also there was general celebrations. So you would have one for sort of festival, harvest festival, Easter. Christmas was obviously one of them, but I should point out these were religious, were in many cases religious, but they weren't church music. So these were things done being connected, but not connected necessarily with the church.
Yeah, I can talk a bit about the medieval, because I do know quite a bit about particularly in England, in my neck of the woods, but I know in other parts of England various different festivities, if you want. Yeah, so starting off the bat with the medieval side, in medieval England, Christmas obviously being the center of the celebrating the birth of Christ, so that as a pure religious thing, but the festivity itself would go on for 12 days. It would be from the 25th of December to the 6th of January. And in that, you would have, various feastings and festivities we know a lot about the King's Court. You'd have these grand feasts where the vassals and what have you would come down. You would maybe even have some, in the sort of rare occasions, or what was quite common is when you had, particularly in the early medieval period, the church would baptize new converts, so like a new king or something on Christmas Day. I think like Clovis, for example, the king of the Franks, was baptized on Christmas Day. It was a symbolic sort of gesture, and everything. So you had to have that, but also like with England, you would have, and I think this happened with some of the Anglo-Saxon kings, but you also have, like, in the community, in the villages and stuff, you would have various games. You would have mummings, which were like these plays that would these sort of like street performances. you would have, and the decorations would be like things of holly, which is, still plays out today. You'd also have the sort of pagan-esque thing of role reversal traditions. So you would have like the Lord of Misrule and the Boy Bishop, for example, where there would be like this, like in the I believe it's somewhat of like a Roman pagan-esque thing where they would elect like a beggar to be emperor or something for the day, that sort of stuff. Yes, and so you would have these sorts of traditions. Um, Mistletoe also comes from sort of medieval England as well, the medieval world. Ivy, um, homes would be adorned with holly, mistletoe, and what was the other one? Oh, evergreens as well. Evergreen hollies and bay. And if you go to parts of England today in the build up to Christmas, you still have mumming plays at this time of year. There's several going on, street performances, and a mumming plays would be people who would mask up, and in some parts of the West Country also, maybe blacken up as well, themselves, and they would perform various retellings of stories, like prince and princesses and stuff. I was involved with one about 15 years ago, and I did it at Cheddar Gorge of all places, and I was um the Grim Reaper. I was the Grim Reaper. It was a bit of a modern twist because I say it was sort of proto-modernist because you would have Beelzebub, aka Satan, in there. You would have what was the other ones? You had some Victorian widow, and you had a Templar knight and a Saracen knight, and the story was that this was a battle of wits between the Templar knight and the Saracen knight. So that was a more modern twist on that. Sorry, Aaron. Yeah, go ahead.
Just going to add to that, alongside the sort of mummer plays, you also had the missionary plays as well, which would be in the medieval period people would act out plays based on the Bible, so particular scenes, and obviously they do the Christmas scenes of Jesus' birth, and the England had a particular tradition of those, which still exists to this day in York, where you have the York cycle, and they will do things like that and continue on that lines, and that is in part where, and we'll come to this later on when they're introduced to Britain, but where Christmas trees come from. So on the continent, in sort of Alsace-Lorraine, the Rhineland, and the sort of the marches with France, Christmas trees, as far as we know, developed there as they were originally used as paradise trees in the mystery plays when they were doing the about the sort of the Christmas Jesus' birth, and then they would be given out and used by people just to as a sort of celebratory thing for Christmas, and that sort of developed into across Germany. And but the reason I mention that is because
I think the Roman thing that William was talking about was Saturnalia, wasn't it?
That Saturnalia, that's right. Yeah, you'd have the role reversals on it. Yeah,
and that was towards the end of December, I believe. And that's probably the reason why Christmas was moved by the Christian Church. There's no real evidence that Jesus was born in December. So I mean,
no, it was quite common. I mean, even during the Roman period, you had the various other cults of Isis and stuff. They would have something around the 25th as well, or in December, the sort of winter solstice time period.
Okay, that's right. I mean, it's the turning of the year, so yeah, that's got to do with that. But I mean, I was also interested. I thought that holly and ivy and mistletoe were probably pagan related originally, but I mean, I still used to go and collect those things in the 1990s in the woods behind my house for Christmas.
They probably were. I mean,
good Christmas traditions actually, because they make good decorations.
yeah, they probably were. I mean, the one thing that is somewhat the one aspect of medieval Christianity was, and this is something that was popular, particularly in England, was the gift giving aspect. So like mince pies and stuff. And this was as Arron Hook was talking about, like the recreation of biblical accounts. The Magi's gifts, so the three wise men, sent bringing gifts. This was replicated, and then the gift giving stuff. Now, whether you believe like they were, on this sort of tale, you had Magi being like Zoroastrian, priestly figures or what have you, three of them. But that bit is probably, I mean, there may have been a gift giving pagan thing. I honestly don't know. I haven't looked into that bit specifically, but what is quite interesting is that does seem to be a key factor, and also that the 6th of January itself, like the final day of the 12-day feast, was actually like the most important day of the Christmas period. It wasn't so much the 25th. I mean, today we condense Christmas probably into Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and Boxing Day, so maybe even like a 3-day at max, or for a lot of people, Christmas Day
that's
is...
an interesting one, William Granville, and I wanted to ask you and Arron about that. Most, like if you speak to an American, for example, they have no idea, most of them, what Boxing Day even is. The Boxing Day is a British thing, as far as I can work out.
Yeah, it is. It partly stems from the sort of gift giving that William's mentioning, but in particular, it has to do with their tradesmen. So it seems to have, one of the earliest accounts of it we have, it seems to go back to sort of on Boxing Day is of the 26th of December, and that's also St. Stephen's Day. And there were traditionally feasts there, and they were given for the poor. And it seems to have stemmed from that. And they were given what were called alms boxes. So it would be a box, like essentially what it later became known as a Christmas box, and they would be handed out to the poor in the parish. And that seems to have developed over the medieval period into sort of 17th century, into something that you would give tradesmen for sort of good work through the year. So either customers or employers would give people working in particular trades Christmas boxes, and so that's how the thing developed.
So a good paternalistic kind of tradition.
Very much so. It's something that very much continued continued well into the 20th century. That sort of traditional thing. I mean, it continues to this day, because I know I've got my mom does a Christmas box for the window cleaner who comes around and does the windows in the street.
Yeah, no, I remember my father would give the dustman a tip and stuff like that when I was a little boy at Christmas time. So yeah, that as you say, that's continued for sure.
Yeah, when we lived in rural Devon, we had like at the local village church, you had like a that's how I sort of learned the origin of it, was you had like a donation box sort of thing, so for charity. And we used to donate like any leftover, really of anything really. It was anything that was unused.
We used to like the dustman would get 10 bob, 50p these days, but in those days actually worth something. And you do the same for your milkman and that kind of stuff. That was how I remember that, going back into the 1970s anyway.
Yeah, actually, speaking of William, I know you're down in the West Country. There's one tradition that has a particular type of Christmas tradition from this country, which is to do wassail. So wassailing, for those who don't know, was a tradition that started in the Middle Ages, where people would take a wassail bowl of an alcoholic drink. It would be spiced. The drink it varied on where you were in the country, and then you would go around offering people a drink from the wassail bowl in exchange for gifts. And this in many cases in the country has been replaced by carol singing. So the tradition of people going to people's house, carol singing, and then being given money in exchange for help, that sort of thing. Well, wassail was sort of the start of that because people would actually sing as well. And the singing was actually quite important because it enabled them to distinguish themselves from beggars. So they weren't begging; they were actually doing something for a part of Christmas, and so the singing part of that was very important.
They were providing entertainment. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And also, presumably, if it's Christian, it's somewhat blessing the house and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, what I remember again when we lived in Devon, I remember it was somewhere outside Torrington. There was a wassailing event, and if you were to see it, I'll try and find an image. But when I remember like the clothing and everything involved with it, it is very pagan-esque. When you see it, it is a very pagan-esque thing, or it appears to be. I'm just trying to think. It's like I remember they would have like fruit and all that sort of stuff and everything but yes, the carol singing. I'll just see if I can find the image of it. Hold on a sec.
Actually, on that point of pagan influence, wassailing may well have a pagan influence because it's from the name comes from Old Norse "vashel," which means in good health or be fortunate, and it started sort of in the north of England during the Danish occupation, and then came from the rest of the country. So it may well have sort of Norse pagan origins as well.
Yeah. I remember when the alcohol, the drink that you referring to, I remember it was always like citrus fruits or something like that in the in the drink, and it was strong. I remember one occasion you had like a couple people staggering about. I mean, I couldn't imagine if you did that for like the whole like villagers today. You'd just be like a complete wreck by the end of it.
Oh yeah, I mean that it being sort of citrus spaces, and I know in the West Country they have a particular tradition of orchard visiting wassail. That's done sort of as a sort of celebration of the cider and the apples, and sort of trying to bring good fortune to the next year's harvest.
How about Yule logs, guys?
Yeah. That again. That's probably something that has sort of may have pagan roots. We know that it first became a sort of Christmas tradition in the 12th century. They were also sometimes known as Christmas logs as well. But again, it seems like it has pagan roots, but actually the pagan roots, as far as we can tell, are sort of very diverse. So there's sort of Germanic paganism, it seems to be represented in, as well as sort of Celtic paganism, Roman paganism. So it's something that is almost certainly a carry-on from the pagan era. And sort of the first evidence of it in England is during the 1640s, where it's called the Christmas log. And it's seen as something particularly done done to sort of help with the fire and sort of helping, very much helping things. And the first sort of evidence for it is from a man called Robert Herrick in a collection of poetry. And where in this poem he recounts how they brought the Christmas log into the farmhouse and then they were rewarded with alcohol for their good deed. And so it's sort of it's another part of that business of charity, helping each other out, sort of a sort of communal, festive spirit of generosity that you get. And this is something
that's kind of cool, Arron. Yeah, no, that's really cool. So you guys go out and cut a log, which helps warm the farmhouse, and then they get rewarded for doing that because it's Christmas. And great stuff.
Yeah, and this is sort of important for people, for some people to sort of understand, is that during the medieval period up until the English Civil War, that was a very common thing. That when we come into it, that does change later on, but that sort of generosity and gift giving and sort of communal element of it is very strong in the Middle Ages.
What are we looking at here, William?
This is a sort of procession, procession here. One thing I'm just going to take my dog out in a minute, but I will say very quickly, yeah, this is here. You got the Green Man. Now, we'll talk about the Green Man. I'll come back and talk about the Green Man. But one thing is also ribbons on there, and also bonfires. Towards the end, you'd have a bonfire as well. Now, which would, it used to be that you would light a bonfire and at the end and ask for the good grace from God and what have you. Again, I mean, very pagan-esque. So I'm gonna head off. I'll be back in 2 ticks.
That's all right, William. We totally support looking after your dog on this channel.
Yeah, these sort of communal traditions continue, are very much well known in the Middle Ages, and then they continue into the Tudor, and they very much survive the Reformation, because whilst there is sort of the threat of a sort of extreme Protestantism under Edward the Sixth, I think it is. Yeah, that's Edward the Sixth. When Elizabeth I comes in, she brings in what's known as the Elizabethan settlement, which is that she says, right, you're all Anglicans, but if you in that particular parish down in the West Country want to do a particularly Catholic version of Anglicanism, and you in, say, East Anglia want to do a particularly Protestant version of Anglicanism, go ahead, but you're all Anglican. So stop
that was when she turned around and said that she didn't want to look into men's hearts. They could keep that to themselves, basically.
Yeah, very much so, and so that means our traditions very much survive. And then we come to the English Civil War, and the Puritans are very, very anti sort of Christmas. They regard it as a sort of as idolatry, Catholic idolatry. Even there are even suggestions that it might be pagan. This is if you ever hear a lot of stuff about Christmas being pagan from both the fringes of evangelical Christianity and from modern day, from sort of the people online who LARP as pagans, as opposed to people like Tom Rosell, who survived the job, who's an actual pagan. He's not talking about him here. I'm talking about sort of people who LARP as pagans. A lot of the sort of idea of Christmas coming from paganism.
All those feminist so-called witches and all those sorts of people. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, they will bring up all this stuff, and a lot of this is a product of sort of the Puritans during the Civil War, and some elements of sort of fringes of evangelical Christianity during the Victorian era, and so a lot of that is just nonsense.
I just want to second what Aaron said about Tom Rousel about Survive the Drive. Excellent channel, really good chap. Definitely go follow him. He's a good guy, and he's not one of these pseudo fake pagans that Aaron is talking about.
No, he about definitely not. and so sort of Christmas becomes a point of ideological conflict in the 1560s, where obviously Parliament, not so much Cromwell wasn't the one who actually, but though Cromwell oversaw the banning of Christmas, he wasn't that overly bothered by it. It was very much Parliament that did that. And also during the period of the rule of Major Generals during the Commonwealth era.
They wanted to, I mean, they didn't only try and ban Christmas, Aaron. They tried to ban dancing.
Yes.
They tried to ban people going to the pub, certainly on a Sunday, but on other days as well. But there were some real extremists, like the Levelers, for example, and people like that, who were kind of almost proto-communist. They were really not nice people.
Yes, the Diggers in particular were communists in all name. They were the closest you get to actual agrarian communism until you get to Maoism in the 1950s. And their extremism was shown, most famously shown by the fact that they banned mince pies. They called them satanic. Can you think of something more ridiculous than that?
Mince pie satanic, yeah. Fortunately, a lot of the more extreme of these guys pissed off to America in the 1600s, where they have been the bane of America ever since. in certain parts of New England. So yeah,
very much so. And one of the big focal ideological battles around Christmas time, especially after it was banned, was the figure of Father Christmas. Now, I want to say at this point, Father Christmas is not Santa Claus. Santa Claus is a originally Dutch tradition, which was then merged into sort of then became Americanized through New York in the during the sort of 17th and 18th century, and then it became sort of the figure of Santa Claus as we know him. It's a product of a poem called, in fact, if you bear with me a second, I can get you the poem itself because I do own it. It is called A Visit from St. Nicholas, or The Night Before Christmas, by, I've got the name of the gentleman, but that, by the way, if you've never read that poem, I would recommend it. It's really good, and you can see where Santa Claus, the modern figure, comes from. Yes, Coca-Cola, I can see Barndor mentions Coca-Cola, Santa Claus. Yes, very much the red clothing that Santa Claus wears in the modern day is a product of Coca-Cola's advertising department, because in the 19th century he would wear various other things, noticeably green, which was something brought from Father Christmas. Now, Father Christmas is very much an English tradition, and it's comes from the sort of 15th century sort of old Christmas. It's this general spirit of Christmas. Yeah, yes, that's the very famous H.L. Mencken quote, which is extremely true. So Father Christmas is referred to as Old Christmas or Sir Christmas or Sir John Christmas. Is this sort of very much a representation of Christmas festivity, fun? He may have links to the old tradition of the Lord of Misrule, which very much is a tradition that seems to go back to the pagan era. I think that was something in Rome as well, and certainly among Germanic paganism, I believe. And
it's quite interesting because even like the role reversals, like having like the poorest like peasant as a king, even though it's like Roman. I think it even may even go back to the Hallstatt, sort of the Hallstatt society. So like the early Celtic society. It's quite an old. It's like the Green Man as well, which I mentioned earlier. That's represented in some of these feast day representations, and they're even like carvings in churches and stuff in England. The Green Man is what we call like an Indo-Aryan figure that goes deep within the ancient world, across many sort of Celtic, Germanic, and Iranian and Aryan societies.
What sort of dog do you have, William Grenville?
I have got a Heinz 57.
Ah, well, they're good. And the good thing about mutts is that they tend to live longer because they're better genetics. They're not so inbred and this kind of stuff. So, I'm a big supporter of crossbreeds and mutts of various descriptions, and they often live longer, which is always a good thing.
Yeah.
The only bad thing about dogs is they don't live long enough.
That's the worst thing about that. Yeah, unfortunately, he's got a bit of an upset tummy today. So I'm hoping that's the last of the. That's the last.
That's all right, William. If you have to take him out again, that's absolutely fine.
Cool.
Yeah, and so Father Christmas seems to be drawing from that, but it becomes a particularly English thing during sort of the 15th century to 16th century, and it really comes to the fore in the Commonwealth era, so between 1649 and 1660, where he is the representation, or he is the anti-Puritan, he's the anti-Cromwell, he is the embodiment of all that's great and good about Christmas. And so there were these sort of what we'll call it the broadsheets that came out. They would do things like such as this image here. Let me just get it up.
I have a theory why Saint Nicholas was the why he became like the anti-figure. By the way, Arron, I don't know if you know a bit about the real Saint, the actual Saint Nicholas, why he might have been used.
I know he used to give presents to children.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe it was Saint Nicholas who crossed. There was the one of the early Christian councils. I believe it was
Oh yes.
by the emperor, and they were debating the divinity, or like like the
Yes.
divinity of Christ, the actual like meaning of Christ and divinity of Christ, whether he's man or God in man form, or what, how, and then the Trinity. And
Yeah.
you had bishop, because they're all bishops. You had Bishop Arianus or Arianus, Nicene. That's it, the Nicene one, Arianus, who was saying that no, Christ is not God, and everything else. And Saint Nicholas walked across the floor and slapped him, like literally, like, thumped him in the face. And then a fight broke out, and the council was sort of adjourned for that period, and the emperor was furious with with him for starting a fight like that. But
I
was that
see. I see a couple of people are asking about drinks and stuff like that. We'll come on to that in the second half of the stream. People like we'll specifically compare British and overseas traditions in the more minor stuff like drinks and all that kind of stuff. We'll come to that.
yeah. But the
Aaron, is
important,
that a 1600s engraving? It looks like a 1600s.
Yes, it's one called The Trial of Father Christmas. It's
cool.
You see a lot of this, and there's a number of other things, but I just William. I remember reading about that, and I couldn't. It made me spoil. Just to imagine him whacking him across the face.
there's quite a lot of art, and the reason why the Catholic, I mean, before Vatican II, before Vatican II, there was a lot of sort of art and iconography on that. The thing is, what made that important for many of the church at the time was he was whacking across the face, like slapping, basically a heretic, someone who deviates from the true faith, which was at that time, the Catholic Church, and or the Roman Church, or whatever you want, however you want to call it. And I think the reason that Saint Nicholas was picked was because you had that with the Puritans and what have you, you had these various sects and these groups which in sort of the minds of the more moderate ones were actually like bending the scriptures of Christianity, and bending the actual meaning of Christ and everything in a similar way. And he was the figure that slaps down, what would they call them, like anathemas, like the false teachers. That's
yeah.
I will say, because I know Aaron's trying to talk about the difference between Father Christmas and Santa Claus. When I was a little boy, and I was born in 1965, so I can remember, I don't know, to about 1969 or 1970, and no one that I knew referred to Santa Claus in those days in Britain. Everyone talked about Father Christmas.
Yeah, it's with it seems that the sort of treating the two as interchangeable seems to start in the 19th century, particularly in America, where obviously their influence, obviously that you've got the English influence there, so more broadly British influence, and then it isn't, as you say, it isn't until very much in the post-war era, until the lifetime of, say, my parents. My parents were born in 1970, 1973, that things start to sort of change. The Father Christmas and Santa Claus are
Jesus, Aaron, I'm older than your parents, for God's sake. Yeah.
If it's any consolation, my parents have a good 10 years on you. Well, actually, 10 years on you, near enough.
My father was born in 1933, for God's sake. But yeah.
Oh, my grandfather was born in 1915.
Well, I can one up you on that, because my grandfather was born in 1904, I think.
Yeah, and so during the English Civil War, during the sort of Commonwealth era, you have things like this, which is the trial of Father Christmas. The name would be either Old Christmas, Old Father Christmas, Sir Christmas, or Sir John Christmas. and he was sort of representative of the royalist defence of Christmas, and so this is another one. Let me just bring it up. Look at this, and this. Yeah, and this, as you can see, sort of the argument that is Father Christmas in the middle. And he's saying, "Sir, I bring good cheer. Old Christmas, welcome. Do not fear." And then here you have I think it's a Puritan on the side here saying, "Keep out, you come not here." And so he sort of he was very much using as a tool of ideology around Christmas time to attack the Puritan regime for its suppression of Christmas and sort of general suppression of enjoyment around that festive season, which was, as we say, as has been shown so far, very much one that goes back into the medieval period and it's very much a communal thing. And
so it was religion, but obviously in the 1600s, religion was also politics. So yeah.
Yes, yeah, very much so. Now, what happens between this sort of thing continues until sort of the Restoration, and then there is a sort of burst of revival of sort of communal Christmas, generosity, sort of stuff from the medieval period, and the Tudor and the early Stuart period. But then that starts to die out fairly quickly, and so by the 18th century, Christmas has become very much. It's something that's still celebrated. But it's celebrated in a private manner. It is not something. It's not a public celebration. And so, for example, Christmas Day is treated in many cases like every other day. It's not something that you have off, for example, in the 18th century and into the early 19th century. So it's very much focused on a private family celebration. And
sorry to interrupt you, Aaron. Barn Door C2I. If you go back about 10 minutes, we actually spoke about this. Queen Elizabeth softened most of this stuff because she said she didn't want to look into men's hearts about their inner private beliefs. And so traditional British Christmas under Queen Elizabeth was okay. And as Aaron has been pointing out for the last 10 minutes or so now, it was really the English Civil War and the Cromwell and the rise of the Puritans that caused the big problems, not Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah, and so by the time you get to the beginning of the 19th century, that sort of continues. But there's two things that happen at the beginning of the 19th century. Or should I say, post-Napoleonic Wars. You have the 19th century is the century where you have the revival. It starts sort of in the 18th century, but really takes a hold in the 1820s and 30s into the 40s, and then is sort of kicked into overdrive by the Victorian era. And sort of looking into English and British folklore, folk traditions. This is where a lot of the folk music that we have, the traditional folk music that exists, is sort of is written down and found by people like Sir John Jacobs in the late 19th century, and this is something that's going on across Europe. So obviously the Grimm brothers are coming up with fairy tales, and so there are various sort of private societies that are looking into sort of various traditions, Christmas being one of them, and they're sort of trying to revive them. And it's in the first half of the 19th century that the Christmas tree is introduced to Britain. Now, I previously mentioned that it starts in sort of the Rhineland, Alsace-Lorraine, and then spreads out into Germany. Well, it's first introduced in a private manner to Britain in actually 1800 by, let me just find the name, by, it's actually Queen Charlotte, which is George III's wife. She obviously is German, and she introduced the Christmas tree at a party held for children, and this was purely within the royal family. However, one of the children attending these parties was a young Princess Victoria, who remembered these, and so she obviously becomes queen in 1837, and the man she eventually marries is Prince Albert.
Yeah, Barn Door C2I.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, you see, Queen Victoria, first of all, as Aaron has pointed out, and I didn't know this, remembered these private children's parties from when she was a little girl. But Queen Victoria was deeply in love with Prince Albert. If you read her diaries, which have been published, she says some pretty risque things for Queen Victoria about how much she loved Prince Albert. She really does. And so, yeah, she was entirely in favor of bringing this into popularity in Britain. And of course, one of the things that the Victorian royal family under Victoria did was that all of not just the most middle class people tried to copy them to some degree. You know, they were kind of like the ideal British family in some respects. And so this was really where the British royal family became vastly popular. In fact, and so
Also,
because hang on a minute, William. This is why Christmas trees took off in Britain, is because the royal family thought they were a good plan, so everyone else did. And you know, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I mean, I remember being a very small toddler boy, and you know, all the Christmas lights and the Christmas tree and the decorations, and you know, if you're a small child, there is a great deal of wonder about Christmas still, I hope. So yeah, but Arron, give us the historical take on this, and William, please just put your bit in whenever you want.
I was just going to say, one thing that's during this time period as well, and this sort of plays into the sort of the cultural aspect of it. There was a massive revival in, well, as we know about mythology, like with during the Victorian period, we talk about like Robin Hood in the past, but also in Germanic culture, and this could be down to, you know, the you know, like this, for example, the Saxe Coburgs and the House of Hanover and everything, and that sort of legacy. But one thing that you did have, like this sort of Gothic revival, you had various sort of in the arts and culture scene, and also the sort of Germanic interest in Germanic philosophy and ideas through like Thomas Carlyle, again all around this sort of time. So it makes sense why, you know, particularly in some more sort of like the festivities aspects of it, why there would be um you know there would be that inspiration.
I was going to say, William, that you know, in relation to the first of your British art streams the other day, and I understand you're going to do more than one. That you know, stuff like the pre-Raphaelite movement in art, and also the arts and crafts movement under Morris and people like that. I think that was somewhat related to this stuff. Although I think it was actually not so much the pre-Raphaelites, but Morris was a little bit later, maybe, than, because the Prince Albert stuff and Christmas trees was really late 1840s, kind of that sort of time. And it was also when, of course, Dickens wrote A Christmas Carol around that kind of era as well.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, no, that's true, and you know, a lot of what, you know, and everything culture. What was quite interesting is, particularly, you know, after the 1840s and that period, there was more interest, not so much in the classical world of like the Greco-Roman world, but you had more of a sort of a focus on the sort of pagan world of Nordic and Germanic, you know, the and maybe even Celtic mythology, in sort of our own mythologies and our own thing is separate from the Greco-Roman one. And of course, you saw this in like Germany and everything. You saw them in those contemporary countries anyway, with Romanticism and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I was just saying it makes sense, you know, why you see that, and of course at that time, the English people um they still they considered the Germans of, I mean, of course there wasn't a proper Germany at that time, like you know, that would be later on, but we still viewed ourselves as like a sort of Germanic people, the Saxons and what have you, was still there was still that lineage and connection, and they were still allies and what have you.
Yeah, Germany, Prussia, and what have you were traditional British allies in the 1840s for sure. But also, I see Angelic Domain says they don't learn much about Cromwell in America. I can't stand Cromwell. I would have supported Charles I in the English Civil War, even though I wouldn't have liked him very much. I would have still supported him because he was the legitimate King of England, and Cromwell damn well wasn't. But that's just me, of course.
I wasn't there. I believe there were revolts in the New England colonies against Puritan governors. Like there was one they kicked them out or something out of like one like it was like Pennsylvania or something. They kicked them out and they went.
I'm not too sure about
Little-
that. You'd need to read.
I don't know.
You'd need to read Albion Seed on that, which is a
Yeah.
very good book about the people from Britain who settled in North America. But most of the royalist guys settled in the South, Virginia, etc. And I have much more sympathy with those dudes, to be honest. But there we go. That's just me.
Yeah, I from my understanding, and I didn't think Cromwell the Commonwealth had much control in a lot of the colonists and everything. Even though you had like Puritan governors, it wasn't like that there wasn't like he wasn't like an arch villain of early American of the early Americans.
I would just say to Angelic Domain and to anyone watching this, at some stage we are going to have to do a stream on 16th century British politics. 1600s British politics. I beg your pardon. 15th century British politics. But yeah, at some stage we'll do that next year. But we're not going to do that today, because we'll get distracted from our subject of a traditional British Christmas.
Yeah, and another element of what's sort of causing this revival of Christmas is Williams mentioned sort of romanticism and the interest in folklore and sort of older traditions that are non-sort of classical. But another part of it is there's a religious revival going on now. If people remember the stream Duke did, a history stream Duke did on the abolition of the slave trade, I mentioned in there that one of the things that motivates the abolitionists is that there was a thing called the First Great Awakening, which is a religious revival, out of which you've got things like Methodism and also the Clapham set, which produced William Wilberforce and really influenced the abolitionist movement in this country. We have what's called the Second Great Awakening taking place in the 1820s and 30s and into the 40s. And unlike the First Great Awakening, this is something that's causing changes not just among Protestants but also among Catholics. So you get the Tractian movement and the Oxford movement, where you have sort of reviving the Catholic tradition, England's Catholic religious tradition, which obviously includes the medieval Christmas traditions. And so all this is sort of coming to a head in the 1840s. And you have, as Duke has mentioned, the fact that the royal family is the trendsetter for very much middle-class families. So when the middle class do something, when the royal family does something, the middle classes will then adopt it. So Christmas trees being the most famous one of the combination there of both Queen Victoria's childhood memories and also Albert bringing that tradition of Christmas trees from Germany itself. And then the big thing that sort of changes things is something that William has actually already mentioned, which is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Because Dickens is very much interested in the idea of Christmas as a time of generosity, of humanitarianism, of generosity of spirit, in both spirit to your fellow man, also and treating children well, and making Christmas a public thing again. This does not mean a private thing. And so when A Christmas Carol was published in 1843, it really does help influence this. It brings back that sense of
Aaron, sorry to interrupt you. Just to let people know, 1843, that the Queen Victoria had been on the throne for 6 years at that time. She became queen in 1837, so it's very early in Queen Victoria's reign.
Oh yeah, very much so. And and the thing you have to understand about traditional British Christmas is that this sort of thing that sort of Dickens sort of is sort of the engine for is the revival of old traditions of or a public event of Christmas and things like that, as well as introducing new ones are products of the Victorian era. So, for example, we've all received or sent at some point Christmas cards. Well, they are a product of Victorian Christmas. In fact, the first Christmas card, which in fact I do have an image here. Let me just find it for you. Here we go. Was actually sent in December 1843.
Yeah, one other thing, Aaron, I'd just point out from a historical perspective is that in 1843, Queen Victoria was still a young queen, and there's actually a fairly good film about the young Queen Victoria, and she was not this widow of Windsor picture that we get from the 1890s and stuff. She was actually quite a pretty young girl back then, so that's worth bearing in mind as well.
Yes, very much so. She was full of life, and as you mentioned before, Duke, she was very much in love with Albert, and they were extremely happy. And so a lot of this sort of Christmas element of it becomes it's much an expression of sort of her enjoyment of Christmas, and that then get adopted by the middle class is very much an expression of her sort of personal happiness with Albert. And as I mentioned, this is the first ever Christmas card. It was invented by a civil servant called Sir Henry Cole. And the reason he developed it, he created it, was purely because he wanted a simple way to say essentially Merry Christmas to all his friends. And so he invented the Christmas card. And this is this has obviously become a very Christmas tradition here, and especially everywhere else in the world. I think, particularly mainly I think, well, at least I know in the Anglophone world. So this is where it comes from. If you've ever received a Christmas card, so Henry Cole is the man to thank for it, whether you're happy to receive it or not.
That's pretty much what I write to all of the few people I send Christmas cards to. So yeah,
yeah, and I think the Merry Christmas might actually be connected to a Christmas Carol, because it's a greeting that's been been around for many years. It's been around for centuries at that point. I think the earliest recorded one was in the reign of Henry VIII. But Dickens sort of popularised it for the Victorian reading public. So I think that the use of Merry Christmas there may well be an influence from a Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
And actually, Christmas Carol somewhat influences one of the revival of Father Christmas, because there is a very famous image in the original The Christmas Carol, just find it here, of the Ghost of Christmas Present. And this was in the original version of A Christmas Carol, the first edition of A Christmas Carol.
You can tell that first card was a British card, Aaron, because there's even a dog in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say on the sort of Dickens Christmas Carol, the one that sticks out to me, and I thought you'd get this one, which was it was a cartoon from the year 2000, and it had Kate Winslet in it, along with quite a good array of like the Shakespeare lot, and that one just stands out to me because the way that they had the ghost of like up here, exactly dressed like that, all in green and what have you, very merry fellow. So it was somewhat true. And the amazing bit was, I remember Ebenezer Scrooge in that version had a very interesting like the leader of the Green Party sort of face about him.
Yeah, let's not make this stream political, please.
Okay, yeah.
William, honestly, you know what? Sometimes I have had enough of politics, and for this particular stream, I don't want to do that. All right, mate? I just don't.
Fair enough.
But
Let's
keep politics out of this and just talk about this.
But yeah, it was that adaptation was quite true because of the way it represented, particularly in, like here.
Yeah, and this, for those who don't know, is the Ghost of Christmas Present, and as you can see, the way he's dressed, being a big bearded man with a long coat on. One of the things that I've mentioned before about this sort of coats that Santa Claus in traditional American representations, visual representations, that would be different colours, but green was one of the ones that would be used quite often, and green was very traditional for Father Christmas in Britain, because obviously green is associated with.
I wonder if that's a tie-in to what I mentioned about the Green Man earlier, like in the various mummings and what have you, going back to medieval. Yeah.
Yeah, very possibly. Yeah,
and even today, I mean, red and green are very popular colours for Christmas because they contrast so well. So
quite. I think it may well be going back to that, and also I think it might be going back to sort of the element of I mentioned it before, the Lord of Misrule. And so another's probably drawing on that as well in this, in sort of both in the book and in the illustrations as well, particularly this one. And so this particular image does seem to have an influence on the sort of development of Father Christmas as he's revived in the Victorian era. He had sort of been a presence at Christmas in sort of mummers plays. Throughout the 18th century, but it's really from the 1840s onwards he returns as a figure unto himself, who is very much a representation of Christmas it's an incarnation of Christmas as the cheer, and also he becomes a figure who is associated with presents giving, particularly for children, where it's supplying children with
for good children. Don't forget, yes. Aaron.
Yes.
The point was, if you were a child, and I remember this from the very early 1970s, you had to be a good child if Father Christmas was going to be bringing you nice presents, which, I'm not against that, but I think children need to learn to be good because, naturally speaking, we're all little
devils.
Little devils. So yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
I was always told. I was always told that if I was naughty, I'd get coal. I would get coal in me as my Christmas present.
Yes, it's an interesting thing about that, because if you think about it, whilst they might not get a nice present, they are still getting a present that will help their family. If you get a piece of coal.
Yes, back then, yeah, true.
I mean, also, all the Christmas lights. This is the darkest period of the year, so all those lights are looking towards the spring. That's partly what they're about. It's lighting up the darkest part of the year, which again is probably pretty pagan in many respects.
That element of it being that, I think that is one of the reasons why it's something that you get sort of winter festivities across the board in the Northern Hemisphere, because I know most of the people here are in Britain, but if you're, for example, in Southern Europe or Africa or say Latin America, I promise you do not know how somewhat depressing it is to have to get up at say 6 o'clock in the morning to go to work, it being dark, and then leaving work at say 5, 6 o'clock, and it being dark again. You need something.
I remember it well, mate. I remember it well. But yeah, for sure.
But that goes back into the Green Man thing. The greenery and everything is a representation of life. In spring and summer, that's rebirth. That is life. In the winter, that unfortunately, it's death. And also, I mean, this is a sad reality. A lot of people, particularly elderly people, tend to die this time of year. It's people tend to die at this time of year because of where we are.
Well, where you live,
climate.
where you live, William, if you know some local old people, go give them a visit. Or I know people in our sphere like to talk about the day of the pillow and all this kind of stuff. But you know what? We're not talking about individual old people, and certainly not average individual old people. We're talking about the elites who actually misrule our world. So, yeah.
I'll say Michael Heseltine lives nearby. I'll pay him a visit.
Yeah, you see, there's one of the elites that rules our world.
That's a Christmas joke. That's a Christmas joke. The Green Man would love it. It's a pure joke. No, to be honest, I do
violence. We do not support violence on this channel. We never do.
I know. I was going to give him a present. I swear, I was giving him a present.
William. It is the 18th of December. Okay, it's the 19th for me. How about we have a little bit of good cheer on this one stream, and we can return to Dumaville like in next year. Okay, please.
No, it's a. Don't worry, Iron Duke. It's a joke, but it is good. It is good. To meet, get involved with anything on local carol singers, for example. That's sort of gearing up now. So people in Britain, if you know a local, if you know of any carol singers, get involved. I done it for, well, off and on again for years since I was a little boy.
Yeah, if you know a little old lady who lives in your street who no one ever comes to see, this is a good time of the year to go and, I don't know, go visit her and take a steak with you or something like that. It's supposed to be a time of good cheer. I'm an agnostic. Okay, I've come down. I used to be an absolute atheist. I'm not now. I'm a don't know, so I'm an agnostic. But you know what? I'm not at all against Christian people. And if you want to be nice to your local grandpa or granddad who doesn't have any children ever visit them, this is the time to do it.
Yeah, and that sort of very much humanitarian side of things is again something that you get from the Victorians, and particularly it comes from Dickens with the Christmas Carol. That sense of Scrooge, when at the end of the story where Scrooge gives the boy a penny to go, gives some money to go and buy. I can't remember. I think it's a turkey. He sends him off to buy, and so that
it's a goose. One of the things, Arron, I wanted to ask you was that, so far as I can work out, turkey didn't become traditional British Christmas fare, given that turkeys are an American bird. Turkey didn't become a traditional British meal until fairly late, actually. Usually, like Christmas Carol in the 1840s, it's a goose for sure, which is very, very greasy, by the way. I've eaten goose, but it's the opposite. It's the opposite to turkey. Turkey can be quite dry, and you try and keep it hydrated, whereas goose is like so greasy, it's unbelievable. But
yeah, I think I may have mentioned this to you on the Discord, Duke, about the man who sort of first introduced turkeys to Britain was, I think it was the godfather of Admiral Nelson.
No.
And he was also the nephew of Sir Robert Walpole, the Prime Minister, the first ever Prime Minister.
Yeah, we if it's related to Nelson, we have to give it a bit of a pass, of course. Lothar Sheffield is being the carry-on guy in the stream, as he so often is. But okay.
That is funny. Like,
Yeah, Loaf of Sheffield doing Carry On Christmas. Okay. But yeah, no, listen, this is one of the things I'd like to get on to in the second half of this stream, Aaron, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
is some of the local traditions and drinks and foods and all the rest of it, because I think people would find that interesting. But before we do that, I've got two things I need to do. Well, one is plug my channel, because I'm an awful grifter. Guys, if you want to support the channel, you can do that. You can support the channel, or you can ask a super chat question, which myself and the guests will address towards the end of the stream. And you can do that via Entropy, and that's pinned at the top of the chat on YouTube. Also, you can please hit that thumbs up like button. It really does help the channel with YouTube's holy algorithm, which is important. I'd like to give another plug to William Grenville's British Art Stream, and I think that's the first of a series he's going to do. And
Yes.
he had Alexander Adams on there, who is a genuine British artist and art critic. And even if you don't give a shit about me or Aaron or William, Alexander Adams' contributions on that stream are well worth watching. So go and check out William Grenville's channel. Put in AI Shiatori or whatever on YouTube.
Yeah, AI,
search, and you'll find it. And it's a really good stream, mainly because of Alexander Adams, who knows what he's talking about. So that's well worth watching. And also, guys, I am going to be doing a stream on the 27th, 28th, I'm not quite sure what, on Millennial Woes' Millennial Yule thing. And we're going to be talking about Lady of Shalott, the late Lady of Shalott, who was one of the best ladies who's ever been involved on the right in politics at all. And I would strongly suggest people go watch that because I think it will be interesting. And Lady of Shalott was a great lady, in the best sense of the term lady. So, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. It's a shame she's not here to see all this and be partaking in this, because I know she would love this. And definitely the art stream as well.
Oh, look, she would have joined the art stream 100%, and I think she might have joined this one too. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say actually to both Andrew and Hook, I've got a book here, and it is a book on it's a recipe book on going from the Tudor era to the Victorian era, and I've even got here Queen Victoria's Christmas dinner of 1855. If you wanted to get onto that at some point.
Do tell me. That's the middle of the Crimean War. So do tell. What was she having for Christmas dinner?
Okay, so I'll just get to the page a sec. Bear with me, because it's quite a lengthy one. Not her meal, I mean, but the contents. Okay. So this was Queen Victoria's Christmas dinner, 1855. Oh, bloody hell, it's all in French. Okay. Right. So, potagers, à la jardine crème ou riz, poisson, turbot fillets de sole frites, relevés, les dintes, rotis fracis chipolatas, enteris, filet de crêpe elle regents, côtelettes, delange, chicory, supreme de volailles, pointers de as Begs, Pat Chat de Foie, Gras, Elscop de Grouse, Côtelette de Venison Centreflanc, Les Filets de Chevrolet Roytis Jambon Glaze, João de Brooks, Bruxelles, Poulet Estrange, Fazian Polis.
William, I can't
Yeah.
believe that you're on our channel, on a traditional British Christmas channel, reading stuff in French. What is wrong with you, sir?
It's not my fault. The fucking sorry, excuse my language. It's not my fault. The fucking chef at the time wrote it all down in French.
But you translate it beforehand.
Okay, fine. Okay, basically she had chipolata sausages. Okay, you happy now? um, selections of
Even my
various like
schoolboy French
sauce.
worked that one out, mate.
Yeah, she had oh, what was it? She had yeah, various forms of chicken. Those small chickens, they look like these very small versions of chickens. Laos,
I know
mince
she had
pies.
I know she had pâté de foie, and I won't eat pâté de foie. There are only two things I won't eat, and one is pâté de foie, because if you found out how they make that, you wouldn't eat it if you like animals at all. And the other one that I won't eat is veal from calves kept in calf crates. I am absolutely a meat eater, but I don't eat unnecessarily cruel shit, which is the same reason that I don't eat halal or kosher meat, because it's unnecessarily cruel. Yeah, foie
Yes.
gras is very cruel, woodpit. That's what I just said. I've never eaten it, never will.
Yeah, true. I've no. She had venison. She had obviously foie gras, scallops. Um, she had so there was a bit of a seafood there. Um, my French, I will be honest, my French is a bit rusty. It's a bit rusty. Mince pies, roast beef, mutton, boar's head, a game pie, a mutton
Presumably,
pie.
everyone ate like 3 forkfuls of that, because otherwise they just would have like died from overeating,
Yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
they
This is
only
like
ate some of it. In other words, which of course is what you do in a multi food menu.
yes, because well, this would have been for the the Coburg family, the you know, the like the ladies in waiting, the various courtiers and people present, and guests invited, that sort of stuff. Yeah, this would be
You would
yeah,
pick things from that menu. There is no way you would go through all of it, of course.
yeah. The unfortunately the dessert is not listed here, so we don't maybe know what they had for dessert, but um they did have
Brandy
various
trifle,
other meats.
brandy trifle. That's the only dessert you
Probably
can have
yeah,
at
brand
Christmas.
yeah.
You've got to have brandy trifle. I've had that. It's beautiful, really good.
I mean, they had like um vol au vent with apricots as a, but that's not listed as dessert, so I don't know if that's like a that was with like one of the meats or something. I do not know, but yes, also pheasant was present as well. So this was like because you had a game pie, you basically had like a game selection as well. So yeah, as I said, it'd be a massive mix of everything.
Interesting, but yeah. But honestly, William, you come on here as a nationalist and you start spouting French at us. It's appalling, mate.
Should I look at Cromwell's? There's actually here on Cromwell's Christmas list, Christmas meal list. Guess what it says? Guess what it says?
This is going to be boring, but yeah, go for it.
It says, "Nothing, you papist devil."
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I can never decide who I hate most. The most extreme Anglo-Catholics or the most extreme Puritans. I can never decide which one I dislike most, which I think is a traditional British position, to be honest with you. I really do.
The trouble is the Anglo-Catholics that I know, I hate to say it, are just genuine larpers. It's just genuine LARPing at this point.
With one or two exceptions. I mean, like I would say Apostolic Majesty, total exception to that.
Oh, do you mean actual like English people who are Catholic or
yeah. I'm not talking about.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
As I misunderstood. Sorry, I thought you meant the that mixed race chap with the afro that.
No, I would no. I know exactly who you're talking about, mate. And no, I don't. When I say Anglo-Catholic, I'm talking about real English.
Oh no.
Who is a Catholic,
Roman
like
Catholic.
Apostolic Majesty, and I really like Apostolic Majesty. I think he's one of the best YouTubers. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to say, just to Edmund in the chat, I think one will be too much for him. He'd find that an extravagance, maybe half a turnip. Rich Christmas dinner.
My only problem with turnip is he needs to cut his hair. He looks like a bloody girl. But anyway, that's just me. But yeah, leaving all that aside, Arron, would you like to talk about some of the differences between a traditional British Christmas and the American Christmas in particular, because that's the main one that's influenced the Brits, and foreign Christmases generally?
Yeah, a big one is the fact that a big cultural difference is the fact that Christmas goes on for us from traditionally Christmas Eve, essentially up until New Year's Day. There's some people do have to go to work sometimes in between then. It's far more that the idea of it being the festive season, that's rough. That period of time is a special time in the public. It's very much something that's different from the United States, I believe, from being to friends there. Sort of Christmas ends on the 26th of December, and there's back to work almost.
What's quite interesting in America is that things like Thanksgiving, the somewhat non-religious secular holidays, where the foundations don't have any, not so much like a religious thing, but more of a historic thing or what have you, has it's sort of included in that sort of, they call the holidays, the holiday.
I was just going to say, William, that's the difference in America, is that they do have Thanksgiving. So their holiday season tends to go from Thanksgiving, I guess, to Christmas. Whereas in Britain, we don't have anything like Thanksgiving, obviously. Britain was founded in such an ancient period that, there's no particular date that makes Britain great, because Britain's just been around, since before the Roman times, basically. But in Britain, as you rightly say, Christmas tends to go from at very minimum Christmas Day until New Year's, really.
Yeah. When they don't call it like Winterfest or something, some bollocks like that.
No, listen. I'm not saying either tradition is better or worse. In Britain, like I know I've spoken to Americans, and so they don't understand what Boxing Day is, for example, which in Britain is absolutely the one of the Christmas holidays. You know,
I
like
would say to would put in chat, when does Christmas season start? I mean, I would say it's difficult. I guess
who are
you
you
could say
talking to? Who are you talking to, William? Are you asking a child? If you're a child, it probably starts very early in December.
well, it's probably like the
Um,
the
yeah,
1st of December with you have your advent calendar and
it's when your family put up their Christmas decorations. Now, you guys may vary on this, but like traditionally, my family put up Christmas decorations on the 1st of December, pretty much, and they stayed there until the day after New Year's Day. Then you take them there.
we'd always just do it a week before Christmas.
Yeah, fair enough. Absolutely
That was
fair
just
enough.
I think the reason why is because we always used to have we always have real Christmas trees. I think it was just a way we didn't want the Christmas tree to degrade, while it was in the house.
I used to buy real Christmas trees with roots, right, which you can do in Britain, or you used to be able to anyway. And what I would do is at the end of Christmas, I would plant them. At the far end of my garden, we had a wild bit which led into the woods behind our house. And so I would plant them at the end of Christmas. In that wild bit, so they just grow up, and they would link our wild bit of the garden, which was there for wildlife mostly, with the woods, and that was fine. I thought that was cool.
September for Edmund 184. I mean, putting any Christmas decorations up in September is ridiculous. I mean that's ridiculous.
No. When my son was a very small boy, I would do it on the 1st of December because he liked them. That's the only reason I would do it, and also my wife liked them. Women tend to kind of like Christmas decorations as well as children, because they have similar takes on things sometimes. But yeah, if it makes your family happy, do it on the 1st of December. The only rule I ever knew in Britain is you take them down on New Year's Day, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, about sort of the Christmas stuff in shops. I've got a friend of mine who works in one of the big chains here in England, and for him, Christmas seems to start around September when they start selling stuff for Christmas. Even then, there's an ongoing contest. There's a channel I watch called a podcast I watch called Off the Menu, and in the run up to sort of from September onwards, they have a competition to see who can show the earliest example of shops putting up Christmas stuff for sale. And I think the earliest one they got was late August, which is ridiculous.
I was in a Woolworths in Australia probably 10 days ago, and they had Christmas music playing. And I just wanted to vomit the whole time I was in the store because I hate Christmas music, which has got nothing to do with carols or anything. It's just
you still got a Woolworths in Australia.
Yeah, but it's a bit. It's like Tesco's in England, William.
Oh, it's not like the Woolworths.
No. It's nothing like. I'll give you a funny thing that only a few people like me know. Back in the 1980s, you still had Woolworths in Britain, which was kind of like I don't know, a dollar store, a bit like what's that American store that sells everything and it's all cheap shit?
Is it like Walmart or something like
Yeah,
that?
yeah. It was a bit like Woolworths used to be a bit like an English Walmart, a British Walmart, I should say. Whereas in in Australia, Woolworths is a gigantic supermarket chain, just like Tesco's or Sainsbury's or somebody like that. And in South Africa, Woolworths used to be a fairly good clothes store, which I guess nobody knows except me. But they were all Woolworths because, you know, all of this shit is internationally owned these days. So.
True. I remember when, say, Andrew, do you remember Safeway? Remember Safeway at all?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Yeah, 100%.
I imagine, yeah, I would call it. Aaron, you remember? I remember that they used to be quite. They used to like what was it? They would start Christmas like I think quite early as well, like early November. Back then, it would have been like early November, maybe late September. There used to be that sort of Christmas push as well. I mean, I think they were taken over by Morrison's, I think.
When I was married and when I was in England for Christmas, my wife only really went to Waitrose or Sainsbury's, really. But you know, that was because she was a classy girl. So
apparently, there's a Safeways in US stores. Just the Americans in chat. The Safeways was like a food hall, come appliances and recreational, but mainly like a food hall. What is it in America? Is it the same or is it a different? So that'd be interesting to know.
90% of these companies are owned by the same people anyway. So.
Oh yeah, they're the same, but maybe have like different. It's a grocery. It's just a massive grocery store. Oh, okay. So somewhat similar, but yeah, okay.
Actually, so for left field brings up a good point, which is that Christmas songs, which we do have a particular. It's something that obviously is in the US as well, but there's a very particular type of British Christmas song. It seemed the sort of big era of it was actually the 1970s. So I'm thinking Slade and Wizard and that sort of the sort of early 70s bands seem to do really.
Fuck, I hate those people. I so hate them. Really detestable. But yeah,
if you watch it on YouTube, you can still see Jimmy Savile in the corner of those music videos. I'm not joking. I believe you.
You know, I believe you. It's just, but it's interesting that if a lot of those songs are something that I know that quite a few Americans don't quite know about. Obviously Britain and America both have that tradition of having a particular song come out at Christmas from particular bands, but it's very segregated. So Americans don't really hear the British songs in the same way that we, for example, do. I know Loafer Sheffield mentioned. I'm not sure if it's Loafer Sheffield or somebody mentioned that bloody awful Mariah Carey song that's always on.
But at least Mariah Carey used to be cute. That's the only thing I'll say. But yeah, but no, I'm sorry. I hate this Christmas.
Do you know the one Christmas song that I really hate more? It's Wham. George Michael's Wham. Yeah, Last Christmas, and all. I hear it so often at work now. It drives me insane.
Yeah, it's pretty gay, but then it's George Michael's song. So. But yeah, no, all of that is true, guys. All of that is true. But I feel like we're getting negative. So let's talk about
now then.
Let's talk about something good, like British Christmas drinks.
Yes. I've actually got two particular ones. One that's already been mentioned is eggnog, which now the name itself is actually an American creation, but the drink goes back to England in the medieval period, where it was actually called a posset. And so a posset was traditionally a warm milk with either ale or wine, and it was spiced. And it was generally, it wasn't I don't think in the medieval period it was particularly based on Christmas. It was more as a winter drink, a drink that you have at a cold time of the year to keep you warm. It's a little like a hot toddy, for example, which is something else that is drunk sometimes at Christmas, particularly in Scotland. And
Arron, do you know the name of that excellent American 18th century channel that does loads of 18th century food, sometimes American, but also British?
Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Great. Townsend, that's the channel.
That's it. Townsend, really good channel. He does lots of stuff, and it's mostly 18th century, but sometimes a bit earlier. And some of it is American, some of it is British. And really, if you're interested in like traditional recipes or traditional drinks and this stuff, Townsend's is a really, really good channel. I like him very much.
I have got from my recipe book from the Georgian era of
I hope this is
drink
not in
recipe.
French, William Grenville.
It is not in French. You'll be pleased to know, Iron Duke. It's not in French. But I'll let Aaron go. Just carry on ahead, and then I'll drop to the recipe.
So the posset was something that sort of continued on until it was called that, I think, up until the 18th century, and then the Americans essentially coined the word eggnog. Though the word itself actually has a particularly British origin, because the word egg comes from a particular type of posset called an egg flip. And the flip comes from the fact that you pour the two parts of the drink, so the warm milk and whether it be ale or wine or sometimes brandy, in together very fast, or sometimes sherry, and then you'd add the egg. And so that's really good. And the other part, the nog part, comes from noggin, which is a word in East Anglia, which is a particular regional wooden sort of cup that you would drink a posset from, and so that's where the words that people think that's where the word eggnog comes from. It's a combination of those two done in what were the 13 colonies. And somebody else mentioned in the chat. I can see Woodpits just mentioned not that long ago, but somebody else earlier as well. The Tom and Jerry's, which is actually a British variant of the eggnog, and that was invented by a journalist called Piers Egan in the 1820s, and that was very popular in Christmas. Very popular in Christmas in Britain. It also became very popular in the United States as well.
All of that sounds great. I would also suggest, guys, if you want to try a really good Christmas dessert, you've got to go for either brandy or sherry trifle. Sherry trifle is the one you can give to older children. But if it's for adults, do a brandy trifle. That's really nice.
Right, I've got the recipe that we mentioned earlier. This is a 17th century. This was a Georgian era, and it was based off the earlier wassail recipe, but this was basically like how the Georgians did it. So this would have been 18th century, and so on into 19th century. So the recipe, which is described here as a much plagiarized version of the earlier version, consisted of 5 pints of beer, 4 glasses of sherry, at least half a pound of sugar, nutmeg, ginger, and lemon. The recipe also instructs that 3 or 4 slices of bread, cut thin and toasted brown, should be put into it. It was bottled and left to stand for several days. So there we go. That was a Georgian recipe.
Sounds pretty sweet, but probably pretty alcoholic as well. And Angelic's domain is saying, when we're saying Tom and Jerry, are we talking about the cartoons? I like the old Jerry cartoons. You know, I used to actually have several videos of those because my son liked them when he was like a toddler and a young boy of like 7, and I could watch them and they were also still funny. But that's
the
not what
famous
we're talking about.
the famous one when I was growing up, which was banned. It was a banned
Yes.
episode. Was the cowboy? It was Tom and it was Tom when he was a cowboy and he was smoking to impress the cowgirl, and they were smoking like Camel or some brand of cigarette.
Yeah, but there were also loads where there was like this big black mama who was
Oh
the
yes,
housekeeper.
Thomas.
Yeah, absolutely. And she'd hit him over the head with a broom and stuff because poor old Tom always got nastiness. But you know, I had 2 videos that were about 3 hours long of those things because my boy liked them when he was small, and I could watch them and also laugh. Whereas eventually Thomas the Tank Engine, I would run out of patience, or even I made the mistake of getting him to watch 101 Dalmatians, the original cartoon. And it's great the first time you watch it. Even as an adult, it's a good film. But when you've seen it 15 times, you really want it to end. But yeah, there you go. But yeah, no, all true. Arron, do you have other stuff you want to talk about on this stream?
Yeah,
I hope you do.
Yeah, I've got 2 other drinks. People that were still traditional. There are traditional drinks. One is that what this particular one goes back to, sort of the wassail tradition of mulled wine. So that's something that people obviously traditionally drink in Britain. That goes back to the medieval period of wassail, the wassail tradition. More so outside of the southwest, where the south in general, particularly southwest, where because of that being cider growing country, it's particularly cider is particularly the thing used there in wassail. So in the rest of the country, mulled wine is more common as a traditional Christmas drink. And another one, which was actually a traditional British Christmas drink, which was developed in the Victorian era, is called a winter gimlet. So it's a gin and lime cordial with bits with cranberries, clementines, and sometimes maple syrup. And so that was a traditional Christmas drink developed in the Victorian era. So developed around the 1840s, 1850s, when sort of Christmas, as we know it, really modern Christmas really sort of takes off in Britain.
Another good one, Arron, is what's it called? Slow wine. Slow gin is another good one. It's a gin that's had sloes put into it, and you leave it for a very long time. But you can buy it as well, and that's another traditional British Christmas drink.
There is actually another sort of Christmas tradition, which A Christmas Carol is playing into, which almost certainly is older than this, which is people. I'm not sure how much this is true for outside of Britain. But in Britain, we have the very long tradition of ghost stories at Christmas, and obviously Christmas Carol plays into that. And you have the ghost stories of Edmund James in the late 1890s up until he dies in the 30s. And this idea of sort of Christmas horror stories, and particularly ghost stories being told at Christmas, is something that goes back. I know there were stories being told in the 18th century and into the 17th century, some sort of medieval ones, but really does that again is something that's very much revived in the Victorian era. So A Christmas Carol, The Signalman, Dickens' really famous ghost story, that is set around Christmas time as well, and the story of Edmund James. And the stories themselves don't necessarily have to be set at Christmas, but they are generally put out and told at Christmas, and that's something that's in sort of literary form comes into its own in the Victorian era, has sort of been going strong ever since. But from what I've read about sort of the origins of that goes back right back into the medieval period, and possibly even beyond that.
There's one, and I do not know. It's a Frederick Forsyth book, and it's a good Christmas ghost
Yes.
story. And I forgot that it's a real shame because I've got it somewhere, and I've read it, and it's excellent. And it's
Yes.
about it's a pilot in, I think it's 1950s West Germany, and he flies like a vampire back, and he gets lost over the channel, and the plane's power and everything, the jet's power is it fails. It looks like he's going to crash, and he's guided in by this I think it's like this Irish fella who was flying a Spitfire.
I've read that, William Grenville, and I'm pretty sure it's a short story, not a novel.
It's a short story. It's a short ghost story.
Yes,
And
it's.
what's it called?
Yeah, I know exactly which one you've mentioned. Let me just see. Oh, come on, where are you? It was adapted.
The Shepherd. The Shepherd.
Yes.
The Shepherd. Yeah. That's a short one. There was a film a couple years back with that was done. That was like a short Christmas film. Was the only thing is there wasn't any like, well, you had like a Jamaican and at the beginning of it as like an engineer on one of the German bases, and the ghost chap part being Irish, he was swapped to be, it was a Canadian.
A Jamaican engineer on a German base. Yeah, that's really likely. Okay. Look, guys, if you want to watch a good Christmas film for children, I can't suggest anything better than The Railway Children with Jenny Agutter, the original one.
Yes.
That's probably the best. Apart from 101 Dalmatians, of course, which is also great. The original cartoon version from Disney.
Die Hard. Die Hard, the first Die Hard.
Yeah, okay. People think Die Hard is a Christmas film. All right, fair enough. I don't really care about that. But yeah, if you've got little kids and you want to watch really good Christmas films with children, I've got 3 suggestions. One is The Railway Children with a very young Jenny Agutter, who later got very cute, I have to say. But in those days, she was a little girl still. 101 Dalmatians, the original Disney cartoon. And the other one I would suggest is the Incredible Journey, which I think is a Canadian movie. And it's about an English Bull Terrier and a Labrador, or maybe a Golden Retriever, I can't remember now, and a cat who have to travel right across Canada to go and find their family. And they do. And so if you're with little children and you want a good film to watch for those little children, all 3 of those are really good. They have happy endings. The children will love them. Absolutely.
Yeah, and actually, since Duke's recommending films, in terms of A Christmas Carol, that's been adapted more times than I can. I can't.
I think there's hundreds of TV films and there's TV films, TV episodes, and films and cartoons and short animations.
And most of them are shit, by the way. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, well, if you've got small children, a really good one would be A Muppet's Christmas Carol, which somebody's mentioned in the chat. That is a good film for children, and it's actually a reasonably faithful. This might sound strange, but actually a reasonably faithful adaptation as well. If you're old, if you've got sort of teenagers or you're an adult, a really good adaptation is the 1984 version, which has George C. Scott as Scrooge, which is really good.
I recommend for children, and this is something I enjoyed, was The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, of course, Chronicles of Narnia. The film from about 20 odd years ago isn't bad. The one with
no, that is pretty good, William. It is. That's one you could watch with a fairly young child, like 8, 9, 7. And they wouldn't hate that. Absolutely right.
Yeah, that's good. You got Santa Claus and Lion Jesus in it, so yeah.
Yeah,
He is
yeah.
Jesus. He is Jesus, though. He is Jesus in it.
Yes, of course he is. Yes, I know that. I know the author. I know who the author was. So yeah, of course he is Jesus.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. All good films if you've got small kids. I would also say, most Christmas movies are bullshit.
Mm.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, in particular, was kind of it's a Hanukkah film more than it is a Christmas film. But just to point that
Ah.
out, just to point that out.
What
But yeah,
I will say about and this is something that I've noticed is like those Hallmark those what they call the Hallmark Christmas films where it's like these TV films where you have like this is the trope you have you either a single father or someone who's like a man who's had some sort of tragedy and then this young energetic business s woman moves back or moves to this small town, saves the local village or local town hall from demolition from big evil corporate. Sometimes she works for it, falls in loves, and you know marries him or gets with him or whatever. That that's very like common as Christmas films now, and it's now like it's just about a woman getting laid. To like the hottest guy in the area. So
yeah.
that's like
Even though she's twice too old and not at all pretty enough. But yeah,
yeah.
all of that is probably true. Aaron, this was mostly your stream, mate. Final points you want to make?
Yeah, well, with British Christmases in general, in this country we have quite old traditions, and it's in some ways quite surprising how much of it has actually survived in a way that's particularly surviving the Reformation, which on the continent saw a lot of the traditions come under quite significant attack. And that is in no small part thanks to Elizabeth I and her sort of her enforced tolerance on the Anglican Church, which sort of saved a lot of things. And also, we do have as I've mentioned before in this, we do have the Victorians to thank for quite a lot of that. That they were the ones who, in many cases, revived those traditions, which hadn't necessarily gone extinct, but were very much more localized, and they weren't necessarily national traditions that they subsequently became because of the Victorians, or they, in some cases, like the Christmas card and the Christmas tree, sort of invented those as British Christmas traditions. And so it's as with many things about modern Britain, a lot of the good things about Christmas are very much thanks to the Victorians.
And it's funny because the Victorians very much saw the late Tudors as having like like the sort of pinnacle of like particularly food, Christmas meal, like the actual food. And this is the thing we come across very often. Oh, there is no such thing as British or English cuisine or culture or anything. And in my recipe book here, in 1904, French chef Alfred Suzanne or whatever attempted to sum up the Christmas in England of around of his fellow cooks, and he was basically saying, "Oh, it's a nightmare. You have like a massacre of fat beef, mountains of plum puddings, and thickets of mince pies and everything." And he's saying how grand and excessive it all is, and that's coming from a Frenchman. I mean,
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with any of that. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, a traditional British Christmas dinner is like turkey. Now, I'm talking about today in 2025. It would be turkey, it would be Brussels sprouts with nutmeg and roast potatoes, and perhaps carrots or green beans, and obviously gravy. Yeah, I mean, that
or
would be.
red cabbage, red cabbage.
I've never had red cabbage on my Christmas dinner, William,
No,
but you do you. Um,
Arron Hook, do you have red cabbage? Is this like a West Country thing, or I don't know?
I think it might be a West Country thing because it's not something I've traditionally
Oh,
had.
we
So, yeah.
always have red cabbage in when we've had meals or even Sunday roast here in the West Country. You always have red cabbage. I don't see it anywhere else in Britain.
on the other hand, I always have Yorkshire pudding when I can.
Yes.
But that goes better with beef than it does turkey. But
Yes.
it's like I don't cook Brussels sprouts without nutmeg. You put a bit of nutmeg in the water when you cook them, and then you put a bit more before you add the butter to them before you serve them. But anyway, I know many people who don't like Brussels sprouts, but that's only because they've never had them really well made. Loaf of Sheffield. I have a good friend who would be very upset by that comment about budgies.
Well, actually, I let me just check the recipe book a sec, guys, because they might
Don't
actually
do it.
explain.
William, don't do it. Please don't do it. I get enough shit off that woman already, all right? Please
Say,
stop it.
like, Aubrey, when we all visit Aubrey in America, Aubrey comes home one day like, where's the budgie? I was like, well, funny story actually, a funny story about that.
She
The book
won't like.
said
I guarantee
the book
you,
said
William, she will not like that story. Please stop it. All right.
I'm
Don't do it.
okay, I'm joking.
I know you're joking, mate, but she may not because she's a girl.
It's
Like,
okay.
She
It's all.
loves her two little budgies. Okay, leave her alone. She's doing no harm.
Oh, so that's 8.5 then, of pounds of stuffing.
Oh God Almighty, mate. But all right, yep. All those things are true. I'm going to repeat this again because I think this is important. If anyone in our audience has small children and they're trying to work out films, movies in American terms, who they can watch with their children over Christmas, I'd say watch The Railway Children. That's a really good film that kids will love, and there's nothing bad in it at all. Watch 101 Dalmatians, the original Disney animation. Again, there's nothing bad in that film at all. And the same with The Incredible Journey, which I think is Canadian originally in terms of the book it's based on, which is like a couple of dogs and a cat trying to find their family after they accidentally get left behind. And they have to travel right across Canada to go and find their family. And they do. So, yeah, watch those. If you want really heartwarming, nice films that little kids will love and are not unentertaining for adults as well, watch those. They're good. Anything you would like to plug, Arron?
Yes, actually, I've got two things to plug. Both of which are actually connected to stuff we've mentioned today. I will be on Sunday doing a live stream with my friends Steve Stark and John Davies, where we will be discussing 3 of the BBC adaptations of M.R. James' ghost stories, which were they were traditionally part of a series called Ghost Stories for Christmas. They will be Whistle and I'll Come to You, Oh Whistle and I'll Come to You, which was from 1968. A Warning to the Curious from 1972, and then one of the more modern versions of an M.R. James, of A Ghost Story for Christmas, which is also an adaptation of an M.R. James story called A View from a Hill. And so we're going to be talking about those. If people watching who are interested in that but are a bit worried about the fact that they've never read M.R. James, don't worry, because we're not going to be discussing the stories that they're adapted from necessarily. We're going to very much be looking at the TV adaptations themselves, which are all for free on YouTube, so you can find them there. The other live stream I'm going to be doing, which is connected to what we've been speaking today, is I'm going to be doing a live stream at 2 p.m. British time on Christmas Eve about A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, which I read every Christmas. So if if either of if Duke or William you want to come on that as guests, you're more than welcome.
Oh, we can we could do, but like, have different roles. I can be like Scrooge or Ghost of Christmas Past. I can get my Ebenezer Scrooge voice worked up.
Anything you want to plug, William?
No, I'm going to be streaming. I think New Year's Eve. I was going to do seeing the New Year. That's a tradition on my channel that I've done for a couple years now, where I've done like a stream and I just bring in the New Year, and it's just like a chill, relax, ask me anything sort of stream. I will say, when it comes to watching films as a child and everything, like a Christmas film, apart from Narnia, the non-Christmassy Christmas films I would say would be like Lord of the Rings, The Great Escape, Ben-Hur, Spartacus. It's a good one. I mean, these aren't for children. These are like for like teenager, adolescent sort of ones. Like, but then again, I did watch these when I was like 8. So I don't know. It depends. Maybe it's not appropriate now,
William, like if you're talking about general Christmas films, there are two that are the best of all. One is Zulu from 1964. That's great Christmas film.
Yes.
And the other one is Master and Commander: The Far Side of the World from 2003. Great Christmas film.
Now, I would not have considered Master and Command. I've seen Zulu on around Christmas on television. You see it on. I do not see Master and Commander on television that often at all. To be honest, I've never seen it on television. I've had to either go watch it online somewhere or what have you. I do not see it on the channels too often.
That's that. Yeah, you're right there. That's what I'm gonna say. That's been in recent years true, both Zulu and The Great Escape. In fact, I did a live stream yesterday about Great Escape as a sort of Christmas special for one of my podcasts, and that's a film that when I was a kid and even as a teenager would be on either sometimes Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and
Boxing Day. Yeah,
it's never on there.
No, and same as I was going to say, apart from The Great Escape, the other one that I think of as well is sort of like a Christmas film, which again I do not see on television, is Spartacus. Even
Yes,
I don't see that on television now. Again, I mean, a lot of those traditional ones have just been replaced by just boring animated ones and those Hallmark films I was telling you about. So
yeah.
Oh, James Bond marathons as well. Yeah, I used to have like Bond films. I think you even got like the Harry Potter films they used to put on as well. Some of the time, because there was always like Christmases and Harry Potter. I think I don't know. I never really watched Harry Potter to be honest, but
Just to respond to Edmund in the chat, yes, Stalls of Barchester is magnificent. I did have to have a toss up between that and Warning to the Curious when I decided for the live stream on Sunday.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not surprised you haven't seen Master and Commander on Christmas. It's kind of too pro white men, I guess. But same with.
I would recommend all those sorts of things, particularly that one. Get it. I've got a hard copy of it. I mean, you can get it on Amazon.
Me too.
Stuff,
Me too. I have Zulu on Master and Commander, and my third favorite film, which is The Cruel Sea from 1953. They're all on disc, all of them.
Yes, and I've also got I have got on tape somewhere in storage. It was a taping of Captain Blood with Errol Flynn.
Yeah, that's not quite in the same class as the other.
Well, yeah, I know. Yeah, 1930s. We're talking.
Yeah, and it's also very Hollywood. You would pick YouTube. You can find Zulu without ads if you look for it. But yeah. But anyway,
and also Zulu Dawn as well without ads. It's on YouTube.
Yeah, but Zulu Dawn is a shit film, whereas Zulu's not. But yeah, all right. Zulu Dawn is a shit film historically and as written, it's just crap.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
There's also a Boer War film from I forgot what it's called, but it's from like the perspective of the Boers as well, like the first
Oh,
Boer War.
there are loads of those, mate. There are loads of those. Although one other movie I would mention to you is that you can find on YouTube. It's called The Shangani Patrol, which is a Rhodesian history film, and it's pretty damn well done. It was made in South Africa in the 1970s, and it's not bad at all. Go check that out. The Shangani Patrol. Good film. But I've plugged all of these many, many times on my streams. All right. Thank you very much to my guests, Arron Hook and William Granville. Like I said, please come and check out the Lady of Shalott Memorial stream on, I'm not sure if it's the 27th or the 28th, on Millennial Yule with Millennial Woes. I'll be a guest on that. Do come and check it out. I think it will be good. And like I said, Lady of Shalott was easily one of the best ladies, in the best sense of the word, that we have on the right. She was really, really good. She was highly intelligent. And she had a good sense of humor, I can say, because I used to speak to her privately sometimes. Because when I was a very young soldier in the British Army in the 1980s, Lady of Shalott was a little girl in Belfast, and I always like to think to myself that I helped a little tiny bit in helping her not die from the Provisional IRA. And the other so-called Irish nationalists who are not.
You may have passed her in the street. You may have
I might have done, mate. I might have done. And you know what? The Provisional IRA and Sinn Féin, their political wing, they claim to be Irish nationalists, but you know what? They're not, because all they want is Brits out and 15 million Somalians into Ireland.
Well, there's a
liars,
TV show in Britain which is just glorifying and glazing the IRA about
is there really?
Yeah.
Is there really?
One thing that's convenient they don't talk about is when they used to randomly execute not just Protestant but Catholics, just random in farms and
in front of they do it in front of their kids as well. Little children they do it in front of them. Yeah. They were filth, William Granville.
Well, they were. I mean, they were gangsters. They used to run drug operations as well. I mean, the paramilitary used to be having drugs. That's one thing people. I mean, one thing that they like to do, and this is like maybe a bit of revisionist glazing, as like this heroic freedom fighting group against the evil British or what have you. But I mean, they ran drugs. They got their people. The way they kept their communities loyal was they got them all hooked on drugs. They literally
go look at some of the photographs, William Granville. You've got young British soldiers of 19 or 20 surrounded by little kids who they're just laughing at, right? Whereas you can look at photographs of the Provisional IRA cowardly terrorists who the women and children are all running away from. Because I'll tell you this, right? That me and my mates, we were nowhere near perfect. We weren't. But we didn't kill little kids and women. If we could avoid it, we tried not to.
Watch yourself, because the country we live in today, they're having a bit of a good time targeting veterans.
Fuck them, William Granville. Fuck them. Let them take me to court. I didn't ever hurt a woman or a child in Northern Ireland, ever. I found a woman's foot once in the remains of a shopping centre, still in a high heel shoe. I did do that.
I guess from that was from
The
the IRA bomb.
provisional IRA bomb. Yeah, I did do that.
Well, there you go.
Fuck
And then
these people.
well, your response, it's ridiculous. Any soldier who's brought before court should say, "What about the IRA, the bombers and everything?" You just say, "Well, where's the bombers for that incident? Are they in court here? Are they in prison?"
They were
No, they got
all
released.
given a free pass on the Good Friday Agreement,
Yeah,
which was the vile Tony Blair and that scumbag Bill Clinton. All of them.
yeah. And British soldiers should have been given immunity from any
Well, if you're going to
jumped up
give it to
charges.
the provisional IRA, you should have given it to the British soldiers, shouldn't you? Really,
Well, yeah,
if you were going to be fair.
yeah,
And we have
absolutely.
60 and 70-year-old British soldiers still being taken to court over Northern Ireland. When,
Yeah, it's
like I
ridiculous.
say, I'm not trying to pretend any of our guys were plaster states. They weren't. But we did not deliberately fire at women and children ever. None of us. I never knew one soldier who did. Not one.
Yeah, and then the funny thing is, Irish nationalists today like to pretend that the British soldiers at that time were exactly the same as the IDF today. I tell you what, if you guys pulled half the shit the IDF pulled today, I mean, let's be honest. Well, yeah, exactly.
Exactly right. The IDF is not the same as the British Army, mate. The IDF has special small hat protection, but we are not going to get into politics.
No,
Because,
no, no. Well,
it's Christmas, so we won't. But yeah.
yeah. Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to everyone who is subscribed to this channel, who follows this channel, who watches us on X, on Twitter. Yeah, Merry Christmas to all of you guys. I always say, don't let the bastards grind you down, which is absolutely true. But you know what? Merry Christmas. Have a good Christmas with yourself and your family and your friends, because that's what that stuff is about. And we're a nationalist channel. I want Britain to be a leading nation again. That's what I want. Thank you so much to Arron Hook for coming up with this subject and doing most of the talking. And thank you so much to William Granville for joining us. We will be back, I think, on the 4th of January. On the 4th of January, if I'm bored enough, I'll do an AMA and ask me anything, and just a chat stream. And anyone on my Discord is very welcome to join that. I think I'm going to be bored enough by the 4th of January to do that. Yeah, we'll be back then. And whether we are or not, we will certainly be back on the hang on, let me think. Where are we? 4th. We'll definitely be back on the 11th for our next Splendid Isolation stream. So yeah. Like I said, don't let the bastards grind you down. And I am going to play us out with an appropriate tune for once from good friend of the channel, Apostolic Majesty. Sorry, wrong. Beg your pardon. Patriotic Archive. He has a really good channel. I've made a mistake. Sorry. This is not from Patriotic Archive. But he is a good friend of the channel. Go and check him out on YouTube. This is just a traditional British carol that I really like. And it's got a nice thumbnail, so I'm going to play that. Where are we? I need to do that. Sorry, boys. Be there soon. Okay. I am not a tech genius, guys, in case you didn't know that. Which I'm sure you did. Oh, why can't I see my... Oh, there it is. Yeah. Okay, so let's play this. Well, there you go. Merry Christmas to all our subscribers and all our viewers and all our guests, of course. And have a happy new year. And I hope 2026 treats you better than this year. Go on, be